I always thought we had a good marriage. Not perfect, no marriages, but solid. We'd been together for 17 years, and by most accounts, we had built a life people would envy. Nice house in the suburbs, 2 kids, steady jobs. My wife, Jenna, was beautiful, intelligent, the kind of woman who lit up any room she walked into. She worked in PR, so she was always polished, poised, always on. And me? I worked in IT, quiet, behind the scenes. We balanced each other. Our kids were our world. Michael, our oldest, was 15, sharp, a little quiet, but incredibly observant. Maybe too observant. Lily, our youngest, was 8, full of energy and questions. From the outside, we were the picture of stability. But I started noticing things that didn't sit right. Small things. Jenna became more distracted during dinner. She started spending more time at the office, or grabbing drinks with clients. Her phone, which used to sit on the kitchen counter, was suddenly glued to her hand or face down with the screen off. I didn't jump to conclusions. You don't, not after 17 years. You explain things away. Maybe she's tired. Maybe work's gotten more demanding. Maybe I've become boring. I started trying harder. Cleaned the kitchen before she got home, booked a weekend trip, asked her about her day more often. She smiled and thanked me, but it felt like her eyes were somewhere else, like I was talking to her through a fog. It wasn't just her, though. Michael started pulling away, too. He was never the type to overshare, but we used to have our routines. Late-night movies, weekend hikes. That changed. He got quieter, looked at me differently. I chalked it up to teenage mood swings. But once, after school, I asked him if everything was okay, and he looked at me like he wanted to say something, like it was on the tip of his tongue, but all he said was, "Yeah, I'm good." The thing is, I wanted to believe everything was still okay. I needed to believe that. Jenna and I had built a life over almost 2 decades. You don't just let doubt creep in and destroy it because someone seems distant. I reminded myself that marriage isn't always a fairy tale. You go through phases. I convinced myself it was just that, a phase. I kept pushing those thoughts down. But they didn't go away. One night, Jenna came home late. It was a Thursday, I remember, because I had made her favorite pasta and even opened a bottle of wine. She walked in around 10:30, said she had dinner with a client, kissed my cheek, and went straight upstairs. I looked at the table, 2 untouched plates, cold pasta, a full glass of wine waiting. I told myself again, she's just tired. Then there were the gym clothes. She had never been one to care much for fitness, but suddenly she was up at 6, hitting the gym before work, wearing new workout gear. She said it made her feel energized. I admired her commitment, even felt guilty for not doing the same. But something about it didn't add up. She never mentioned anyone new at the gym, never invited me along, even once. I let it go. I thought I was imagining things until Michael made a comment one afternoon while we were folding laundry. I asked him how school was, just small talk, and out of nowhere he said, "Do you ever think people change when they don't want to be who they used to be?" I paused. It felt loaded, but I asked what he meant. He shrugged. "Nothing. Just people act different sometimes. You don't notice it right away." I kept folding shirts, my heart beating faster. Was he talking about Jenna? About himself? I didn't ask. I should have. But I didn't want to open that door. The thing is, Jenna was never cruel. She was still affectionate, still said "I love you," still played with Lily after work, still laughed at my corny jokes. That's what made it harder to believe anything was wrong. There wasn't a big fight, no Cold War between us. Just a feeling, like something was decaying beneath the surface, and we were too polite to talk about the smell. One Saturday, I asked her if she wanted to go on a weekend trip, just the 2 of us. She smiled and said, "Maybe in a few weeks. Work's hectic right now." She always had the right answer. Not dismissive, not defensive, just slippery. I started to question myself more than I questioned her. Maybe I was insecure. Maybe I was looking for problems where there were none. I didn't want to be the jealous husband who goes through phones or tracks locations. That wasn't me. That wasn't our marriage. But doubt, once it's in, spreads like ink in water. Every unanswered call, every muffled laugh behind a closed door, Every delayed reply chipped away at the version of our life I thought was real. Then there was the time we went out for dinner as a family. Midway through the meal, Jenna got a text. Her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, face tight, and quickly put it away. Michael saw it too. I watched him watching her. His jaw clenched. He didn't say a word, but he didn't touch his food after that. Later that night, when I was tucking Lily in, I heard voices downstairs. Michael and Jenna. He was saying something low, urgent. I couldn't make out the words, but I caught one phrase as I got to the stairs. He doesn't know, does he? Jenna didn't reply. Just silence. A thick, unnatural silence. I didn't go down. I stood frozen on the steps, my heart pounding, my mind running in circles. What didn't I know? Who didn't I know? After that, I started paying attention more deliberately. I watched her, not as a husband in love, but as someone trying to solve a puzzle. I took note of every little inconsistency. She had become more careful, or maybe I had become more aware. But the result was the same. I couldn't unsee what I had ignored for so long. Michael, meanwhile, kept up his distance. He was polite, present, but something in his eyes had changed. Like he was holding a secret too heavy for his age. He started spending more time in his room. When we watched a movie together, he barely spoke. When I asked if he was okay, he just nodded, eyes on the screen. I began to feel like an outsider in my own home. Conversations would stop when I entered a room. Jenna's smiles didn't reach her eyes. Even Lily began asking, "Are you and Mommy mad at each other?" I laughed it off, told her everything was fine, but inside I knew I was lying. To her. To myself. I tried to convince myself that maybe this was still salvageable. Maybe I was just going through some midlife insecurity, reading too much into things. I started journaling, thinking maybe writing it out would give me clarity. Instead, all it did was put my fears in black and white. And once they were written down, they felt real. Still, I did nothing. I didn't confront. I didn't accuse. I waited. For what I didn't know. Proof? Courage? A confession? What I didn't expect was for the truth to come from someone who had seen it long before I had. Someone I never thought would be the one to say the words I couldn't. And when he did, my world cracked in half. But not just because of what he said. Because he had known. He had carried that truth. And I hadn't even noticed. After that night on the stairs, things stopped feeling like speculation and started feeling like a countdown. I didn't know what I was counting down to, an argument, a confession, a breakdown, but I knew something was coming. The atmosphere in our house had shifted. Conversations felt rehearsed. Touches felt timed. Smiles felt like masks. Jenna's late nights became more frequent. Some excuses were reused: client dinners, networking events, project deadlines. I stopped asking questions because I already knew the answers wouldn't matter. They weren't lies I could disprove. They were truths she had carefully designed to keep me in place. The smarter she got at hiding, the more foolish I felt for pretending not to notice. I began to keep mental tabs. Thursday, she left at 6:15, came back at 10:45, said she had dinner with a potential investor. Friday, early gym, late breakfast, mentioned running into an old college friend. Saturday, said she had errands, but came home with one shopping bag that clearly didn't match the time spent out. It wasn't the items or the times. It was the way her stories were all just one sentence too perfect. And then there was the perfume. A new one, floral, subtle, expensive. She hadn't mentioned buying it. I noticed it one morning when she walked past me in the kitchen. It wasn't what she normally wore. I complimented it, casually, just to see her reaction. She smiled, almost too quickly. "A gift from a client," she said, grabbing her keys and rushing out the door. I stared after her, trying to convince myself I didn't just hear a rehearsed answer. Michael noticed it too. I caught him sniffing the air after she left. He didn't say anything, but he looked at me like he was waiting for me to wake up. There was no accusation in his eyes. Just disappointment. A week later, I decided to check the shared laptop we kept in the living room. Jenna had her own work devices, but she sometimes used this one for quick emails. I wasn't trying to dig. I told myself I was just looking. That was the word I kept using. Looking. Not snooping. Looking. In the browser history, most of it was normal news sites, Pinterest, a couple of recipes. But there were also visits to places like boutique hotels near downtown and best hidden restaurants for date nights. Those weren't for us. I hadn't taken her to dinner in months. And we hadn't been downtown together in over a year. I didn't confront her. Not then. I didn't want to accuse her of something I still didn't have direct proof of. But the feeling inside me was growing louder. It had gone from a whisper to a roar, and I was doing everything I could to mute it. Then came the gym bag. I was doing laundry, sorting clothes into baskets. Jenna had left her gym bag in the hallway. I never went through her things, but something told me to open it. I don't know why I did. I just did. Inside were the usuals: leggings, sports bra, water bottle. But there was also a receipt from a coffee shop. Not near her house. Not near her gym. A coffee shop tucked into a business plaza 15 miles away. The timestamp was 7:32 a.m., right when she said she was midway through her circuit. Again, I said nothing. It wasn't about catching her. It was about accepting what I already knew but couldn't say aloud. Because saying it would mean ending everything we'd built. Or, at least reshaping it into something completely different. Michael's distance grew colder. He no longer tried to hide the disdain in his eyes. One evening, during dinner, Jenna was telling Lily a story about a crazy coworker, and Michael interrupted her with, "You've got a lot of crazy people around you lately." It came out sharp, fast, and Jenna froze. She forced a smile. "What's that supposed to mean?" He shrugged. "Nothing. Just saying." He avoided her eyes. He didn't touch his food. That night, I tried to talk to him. I knocked on his door, stepped inside, and sat on the edge of his bed. I told him I noticed he was off lately. That if anything was going on, he could talk to me. He looked at me for a long time before saying, "Would you even believe me if I told you?" I said yes. Of course I would. But he just shook his head. "You don't see it. Or you don't want to." That stayed with me. Because he was right. I hadn't wanted to see it. I was still clinging to a version of Jenna that didn't exist anymore. Or maybe had never existed the way I thought. 3 days later, something shifted again. Jenna was in the shower. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced at it. Not to read, just glanced. The name was Kevin. No last name. Just Kevin. She didn't have any coworkers named Kevin. At least, none she'd mentioned. The preview said, "Had a great time yesterday. I can't stop thinking about you." I stared at the screen until it went dark. Later that night, she kissed me on the cheek before bed. I couldn't sleep. Not because of the message, but because of how normal she acted afterward. Like she hadn't just come back from someone else's arms. I started waking up earlier. Sitting on the porch with my coffee, watching the driveway, timing her departures. I noticed she would take longer routes, sometimes turn in a different direction than usual. I knew where her gym was. I knew which way was fastest. She wasn't taking that route. Michael started watching me more than her, like he was waiting for me to crack. One afternoon, he came into the kitchen while I was washing dishes and said, "Why don't you just ask her?" I froze. "Ask her what?" He raised an eyebrow. "You know what?" I didn't answer, because I did know, and saying it aloud would make it real. That weekend, Jenna said she had a Saturday workshop downtown, an all-day event. I nodded, like I always did. But after she left, I asked Michael if he wanted to go for a drive. He agreed. We didn't talk for the first 10 minutes. I drove slowly, not really sure where we were going. Finally, I asked him if he thought something was going on. He didn't respond right away. Then he said, "It's not about what I think. It's about what I know." I looked at him. "You know?" He nodded. "I've seen her. With someone. Twice." The air in the car felt heavy, like it was closing in. Where? Once near the plaza by the coffee shop. They were in a car. Not kissing or anything, but you could tell. The second time was last month. I followed her after she left the house. She met him at that boutique hotel place. I saw them go in. I gripped the steering wheel hard. "Why didn't you tell me?" He looked away. "Because I didn't want to be the one to hurt you." We drove in silence after that. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. I already knew. I just hadn't wanted to believe it would be my own son who'd pull the last thread loose. When we got home, Jenna was back. Said the workshop ended early. Kissed Lily on the head, asked how everyone's day was. I nodded. Said everything was fine. But Michael wouldn't look at her. And she noticed. I think that's when she realized he knew. And maybe that I did too. The mask slipped just for a second. But it was enough. Enough to see the guilt. And yet, she didn't say anything. Neither did I. Because sometimes, the truth isn't spoken. It's carried. Quietly. Until it becomes too heavy to hold. And we were all carrying something now. Something that had already broken us. The next few days passed like a strange performance where everyone forgot their lines, but kept pretending the show was still going. Jenna maintained her routine. She still made breakfast for Lily, still kissed my cheek before leaving for work, still asked me how my day was with that same overly casual tone. But the silence between us had changed. It wasn't just avoidance anymore. It was a shared acknowledgement of something broken, something we both knew but hadn't named. Michael barely spoke to her. He avoided the dinner table when she was around. He spoke to me in short, pointed statements. And Lily, poor Lily, noticed more than she should have. She asked why Michael was mean to Mommy now. I told her he wasn't. I lied again. I thought about confronting Jenna every night. I rehearsed it in my head. I'd ask where she really went that Saturday. I'd ask who Kevin was. I'd bring up the perfume, the hotel, the texts. But every version of that conversation ended the same way, in destruction. I wasn't ready for that yet. I wanted her to confess. I wanted her to be the one to say it, to admit it, to make it real. Because if I said it first, it would feel like I ended it. And I wasn't ready to be the one to end our life. Instead, I waited for her to slip. To say something out of place, to leave something behind. She didn't. She was calculated now. Controlled. Every move measured. Every word timed. It made me wonder how long this had been going on. Months? A year? Longer? Had I missed it that badly? Then came the message. Not from her. From Kevin. To me. It showed up on Facebook. A message request from someone with a private profile. No profile photo. Just, you deserve to know. Ask her about August 12th, room 214, Midtown Hotel. I read it 10 times before my hands stopped shaking. I didn't reply. I just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling something collapse in my chest. August 12th. I checked the calendar. She'd told me she was out of town for a conference. I remembered her packing, remembered the careful folding, the way she hugged Lily extra tight that morning. I opened our shared credit card statement. Found the charge. Midtown Hotel. 2 nights. I hadn't noticed it before. I probably hadn't wanted to. The pieces were there. I just hadn't put them together. That night, I waited until the kids were in bed. She was in the kitchen, sipping tea. I sat down across from her and said, "Do you love him?" No build-up. No accusation. Just the question. Her hand froze halfway to her mouth. She didn't ask who I meant. She didn't deny anything. She just stared at me, then lowered the cup slowly. "I didn't plan for any of this," she said. That wasn't an answer. But it was enough. I asked her how long. She didn't answer at first. Then she said, "Almost a year." Her voice was quiet, like she was admitting something to herself for the first time too. "It started after your surgery, when you were recovering, and everything just felt off." I remembered that. I'd had minor surgery the year before. She'd been there, drove me home, made soup, and apparently started sleeping with someone else. I asked her if it was serious. She hesitated. It was never supposed to be anything. Just escape. I looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 17 years. Who I'd shared a bed with, raised children with, cried with. And now I was sitting across from a stranger who used the word escape to describe stepping outside our life. She said she didn't mean to fall for him. That it just happened. That she didn't want to hurt me. I almost laughed at that. Because that's what they all say, right? Like the pain only starts when the truth comes out, not from every lie that came before it. I asked her if she was still seeing him. She nodded. I tried to stop. I did. But I kept going back. I don't even know why. I asked her if she loved him. She didn't answer. So I asked again. This time, she whispered, yes. And just like that, something inside me went still. Not shattered. Not exploded. Just still. Like a light that had finally burned out after flickering for too long. She asked if I hated her. I told her I didn't even know what I felt. Rage, grief, betrayal. None of it fit cleanly. What I felt was hollow. Like someone had stolen the past and left me with a memory that wasn't mine anymore. She said she didn't want a divorce. That she wanted to work on things. That she still loved me. But I didn't believe that. Because love doesn't hide. Love doesn't delete messages or lock phones or leave hotel receipts under gym clothes. Love doesn't leave a teenager feeling like he has to protect his father from the truth. I told her Michael knew. She paled. Asked how. I told her he saw. Twice. That he'd known longer than I had. She started to cry. Said she was a terrible mother. I didn't argue. I didn't comfort her. She wasn't looking for comfort. She was looking for forgiveness she hadn't earned. She said she'd end it. That she'd cut him off. That she'd delete his number, change gyms, quit her job if she had to. But none of it mattered. Because she hadn't told me until she was caught. Because it wasn't guilt that brought her here. It was exposure. I went upstairs that night and slept on the floor in Michael's room. He didn't say anything. Just made space for me and turned off the light. The next morning, Jenna tried to act normal again. Made breakfast. Asked if I wanted coffee. I told her no. I didn't speak beyond what was necessary. Michael barely looked at her. Lily was confused. The weight of something she couldn't understand was pressing down on all of us. Later that day, I saw her standing in the hallway, staring at our wedding photo. I didn't approach her. I couldn't. Because all I saw when I looked at that photo now was a lie. A moment frozen in time that no longer belonged to the people we'd become. She started therapy. Alone. Said she wanted to work on herself. I agreed, but I didn't make promises. I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay. I wasn't sure if I could ever look at her again without seeing his hands on her. She gave me her phone. Passwords. Said I could check whenever I wanted. That she wanted transparency. But transparency offered by someone caught in a lie isn't trust. It's damage control. The kids felt the shift. Lily asked if we were getting a divorce. I told her we were figuring things out. Michael didn't ask. He didn't need to. I found myself thinking about all the moments I missed. The signs. The instinct I pushed down. The nights I thought I was crazy. And I realized something. Infidelity isn't just about sex. It's about being removed. Disconnected. It's about lies that stretch so long they become ropes around your throat. And the worst part? I still loved her. Somewhere beneath the betrayal, the resentment, the devastation, I still loved her. That's what made it hurt so much. If I didn't care, it would be easy to walk away. But love tied to pain is a prison. And I wasn't sure yet whether I was ready to leave it or just sit inside a little longer, hoping something would feel like freedom again. Weeks passed, and we existed in a strange limbo. Not healed, not broken enough to walk away. Jenna kept her distance without being told. She moved more quietly, spoke only when necessary, and didn't attempt affection unless I initiated it, which I rarely did. The house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a container for unresolved tension and quiet endurance. Michael spent most of his time out. After school, he'd disappear until late evening. I didn't press him. I understood. At his age, the last thing he needed was to be trapped inside a house full of adults pretending everything was fine. I had done the same thing at his age, for different reasons. Now I watched it happen from the other side. Lily seemed okay on the surface. She was young enough to be shielded from the details, but old enough to know something was off. Her questions became more frequent. Why are you and Mommy so quiet? Why doesn't Michael eat dinner with us? I didn't lie, but I didn't give her answers she couldn't carry. "We're figuring things out," I'd tell her. And every time, she just nodded and went back to whatever she was doing. But I could see her understanding more than she let on. Jenna and I went to counseling together. At her suggestion, I agreed, not because I believed in saving what we had, but because I needed clarity. I needed to hear her reasons again in a room where excuses couldn't be dressed up as explanations. The therapist asked hard questions, and Jenna answered most of them with the same refrain. I felt alone. She said she felt like a roommate, not a wife. She said I had become withdrawn, distant, mechanical. I didn't argue. She wasn't wrong. But none of it justified what she did. She cried in those sessions. Often. Said she hated what she'd done to the family. Said she wished she could go back. The therapist told us rebuilding trust would take time. That forgiveness wasn't linear. That healing couldn't be rushed. I listened. But I wasn't sure forgiveness was even on the table. I'd started thinking of Kevin less as a person and more as a symptom. A symptom of something I didn't address when it started growing. We had gone years without real connection. Life got busy, work got demanding, kids needed us. And somewhere in all that, we stopped seeing each other. It didn't excuse her betrayal, but it gave it context. And context, unfortunately, doesn't make the pain easier. It just makes it clearer. Michael confronted her one night. Loudly. I wasn't there for most of it. I only heard the last part when he told her, "You didn't just cheat on Dad. You cheated on all of us." She cried. He didn't comfort her. He walked out and stayed gone until midnight. He started calling me by my first name more often. Less Dad, more Mark. I didn't correct him. I think it was his way of separating from the mess, claiming some adult distance to avoid being swallowed by it. Jenna stopped mentioning Kevin altogether. She said she blocked him, changed her number, deleted all traces. But that didn't undo anything. Erasing evidence isn't the same as accountability. And while she seemed to want absolution, what I needed was truth, not performance. I found myself thinking about other things. If I left, how would custody work? Would Lily be okay moving between two homes? Would Michael stay with me full-time? Could I afford a second place? Could I afford to stay in the house and still be surrounded by what used to be? Every corner of our home held memories. Some sweet, some now tainted. The couch where she'd held Lily for the first time. The hallway where I first saw the gym bag. The bedroom we hadn't shared since the night of the confession. I started sleeping in the guest room. Jenna didn't ask why. She just accepted it. Maybe that was the last shred of respect we had for each other, an unspoken understanding of boundaries we could no longer ignore. Then one night, I got a text from Michael. "Can we talk?" I found him sitting in his car in the driveway. I got in. We sat in silence for a few minutes before he said, "You gonna stay with her?" I didn't answer. He nodded like he expected that. "You don't have to," he added. "You know that, right?" I told him I knew. But knowing and doing are different things. He said he just wanted me to be happy again. I told him I wasn't sure what happiness even looked like now. He looked at me and said, "Then maybe figure that out. Without her." The next day, I told Jenna I needed space. Real space. Not just a different room. I found a short-term rental a few blocks away. Told her it was temporary. That I needed time to think. She said she understood. I believed her. Because this time, she didn't cry. She just nodded, as if she'd been waiting for it. I packed a bag. Michael helped me carry it to the car. Lily asked if I was leaving forever. I told her no. I told her I loved her, and that I'd still be there every morning before school, and every night if she needed me. She clung to me longer than usual. I fought the urge to fall apart. In the apartment, I sat on the floor for a long time, just listening to the silence. No footsteps, no voices, no pretense. Just space. Honest, uncomfortable space. A week passed. Then two. I still picked up Lily from school. Still texted Michael about homework. Jenna called once, asked if I'd come back for a family dinner. I declined. I needed more time. Eventually, I sat down and wrote everything I felt. All of it. The pain, the confusion, the anger, the regret. I gave the letter to her without saying anything. She read it in front of me, cried silently. When she finished, she said, "If this is the end, I understand." But it wasn't the end. Not yet. Not because I forgave her, but because healing doesn't always start with leaving. Sometimes it starts with honesty, with acknowledgement. And for the first time in a long time, we had that. I didn't move back in right away. I still haven't. But we talk. We go to therapy. We show up for the kids. And some days that's enough. I don't know if love is still there between us. I know something is. Maybe it's history. Maybe it's habit. Maybe it's the stubborn hope that people can grow after they've fallen apart. Michael is still quiet, but he's less angry. Lily laughs again. Jenna is different. Quieter. More deliberate. Less performative. And me? I'm learning to live with the silence. To listen to it. To understand that sometimes what breaks us isn't the betrayal, it's the belief that healing means returning to what we were. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe healing means becoming something new entirely. And maybe that's okay.